Donald Trump and House Republicans have now shut down the Department of Homeland Security for more than 70 days because Donald Trump and Republicans want to continue to drive their extreme immigration agenda and violent mass deportation machine led by ICE down the throats of the American people. Several weeks ago, a bill was sent over from the United States Senate that was supported by every single Republican and every single Democrat in the Senate. It's a bipartisan bill that has been languishing in the House of Representatives. We can bring that bill to the floor today, and it would fully fund the United States Secret Service. Why is Mike Johnson and House Republicans continuing to refuse to bring that bipartisan bill to the floor that would fund TSA? It would fund the Secret Service. It would fund FEMA. It would fund the Coast Guard. And it would fund the cybersecurity professionals at the Department of Homeland Security who are working hard to keep us safe. Instead, it's House Republicans that continue to play partisan political games. If they really do believe we need to act swiftly, there's a vehicle to do it. Bring the bipartisan Senate-passed bill to the House floor today, and it would fund the Department of Homeland Security in its entirety, with the exception of ICE and the violent Republican mass deportation machine. Questions?
Mr. Leader,
Kevin?
Mr. Leader, I want to get your response. I realize this quote is a quotation from someone else, but you Republicans continue to hit you over saying maximum warfare everywhere all the time in your tweet after the Virginia election. So I want you to respond to that. And from a macro perspective, if you can, what are you advising your members to do about rhetoric right now that you can criticize the president without facing GOP criticism?
Political violence in any form directed at anyone, whether that's the right, the left, or the center, is unacceptable. Period. Full stop. The notion that any of us are concerned with so-called criticism from these phony Republicans as it relates to anything that has been said, certainly as it relates to the comment related to maximum warfare everywhere, all the time, in connection with the redistricting battle that Republicans launched. I stand by it. You can continue to criticize me for it. I don't give a damn about your criticism. First of all, that phrase, maximum warfare, everywhere, all the time, came from the White House in the summer of 2025, when they started this redistricting battle. And now they're big mad. Why? Because Democrats have decided to finish it. Get lost.
Mr. Leader, good afternoon. Can you characterize the fractures between the United States and the United Kingdom? And do you think that a speech by the King tomorrow, what would need to be said to repair some of those divides?
We look forward to the state visit by the King. We look forward to greeting him here in the Capitol before he speaks to a joint session of Congress in a bipartisan way. And we look forward to the conversation about what has been our closest ally in the world. And it's a special relationship between the United States and the United Kingdom. That toxic Republican policies over the last 15 months or so are eroding. And hopefully the King's visit is going to go a long way toward repairing the damage that this administration has done to one of our most important allies in the world, and certainly our most important ally in NATO.
Are those policies that warn Iran as a terrorist?
The White House is saying that in the aftermath of Saturday night, that a ballroom should be authorized by Congress to allow the president to have these kind of events and be secure. Would you support, given those concerns, will you support Congress authorizing the construction of a new ballroom at the White House?
At the moment, from the standpoint of national security concerns, Here's what I think is most important: that we end this reckless and costly war of choice in the Middle East. The Republicans promised to stop wars in the Middle East, not start them. Those were Donald Trump's words. And Donald Trump and Republicans have now gotten us involved in this reckless and costly war of choice. Billions of dollars are being spent in the Middle East, and our national security posture hasn't been enhanced. There are many who argue that Iran right now is stronger as a result of the war that Donald Trump launched than they were beforehand. They've got control of the Strait of Hormuz. Gas prices have increased. Freedom of movement has been restrained. And now we're in an indefinite ceasefire because it appears that the administration is on its heels without any exit strategy to actually put the American people in the strongest possible position. I have not seen a specific request with respect to the ballroom, but needless to say, we have to drive down the high cost of living. Life has become more expensive as a result of Donald Trump and Republican policies over the last 15 months. We have a broken healthcare system. Apparently, Republicans don't want to spend any time talking about that because they enacted the largest cut to Medicaid in American history. ICE is out of control, and taxpayer dollars are being spent to brutalize and kill American citizens like Renee Nicole Good and Alex Preddy. And we have a reckless and costly war of choice that's spinning out of control in the Middle East. These are the things that we should actually be focused on, not a vanity project that resulted from the destruction that was unauthorized of the East Wing of the White House.
Mr. Leader, Mr.
Thanks.
Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. I saw your statement on the new Florida map, but I'm curious, were you surprised that the map was so aggressive that DeSantis went after 4 seats instead of 2, given what you described as Democratic overperformances since Trump was elected? And can we expect you to be as active in pushing back against this particular map as you were in support of the Virginia?
The so-called map, which is a DeSantis dummy mander, actually is blatantly unconstitutional. The Florida Constitution is pretty clear as a result of the Fair Districts amendments that were enacted back in 2010. It explicitly prohibits partisan gerrymandering. And so what is the reason that in the middle of the decade, Ron DeSantis has come forward with a map that is designed by his own description to add 4 additional Republican-leaning seats? It is blatantly unconstitutional. If Ron DeSantis wants a different map, he should do what Democrats did in California and Virginia. Take it to the voters, Ron. The problem is he's afraid of that. And so he's going to try to bully the legislature to enact a map that clearly violates the Florida state constitution. And by the way, because it goes after communities of color in South Florida and in Central Florida, also violates the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution. No matter what happens with the callous decision in Louisiana, the 14th Amendment still stands. So when it's all said and done, the DeSantis dummy mander is going nowhere as it relates to providing Republicans his clear objective with additional seats. And at the end of the day, because of our forceful response, Republicans are in catch-up mode right now. They're not getting 5 seats out of Texas. They're fortunate if they get 2 or 3. They are deep in the hole. And Florida is not going to make a meaningful difference as it relates to their efforts to rig the midterm elections. That effort has failed. It's over. And what the DeSantis dummy mander might lead to in the first instance is that based on our analysis of the map, there are anywhere between 3 and 5 additional seats that Democrats can pick up if we get a turnout that mirrors 2018 or 2020. And that's exactly what we expect will happen.
Mr. Leader, I know you said you stand by your comments. At the same time, you have been the subject of threats as well. So with respect to this comment about maximum warfare, even if it's about redistricting, why not tone down the language here in this moment?
I think that what's interesting to me, as you pointed out, is that the so-called White House press secretary, who's a disgrace, she's a stone-cold liar, had the nerve to stand up there and read talking points being critical of statements all taken out of context that Democrats have made, and didn't have a word to say about anything that MAGA extremists have said or done, including providing aid and comfort to violent insurrectionists here at this Capitol on January 6th, who brutally beat police officers. The president then pardoned those violent rioters, many of whom have gone back into communities across the country to reoffend. And as you pointed out, one of whom threatened to kill me. He said, kill the terrorist. Where did that language come from? What Republicans use that language? Why did that pardon MAGA extremists, violent insurrectionists, choose to use the language of terrorism directed at me when he threatened to kill me at an event? And so how can we take them seriously when they raise these partisan attacks and completely ignore the fact that a lot of folks, including Governor Shapiro, his home was attacked by an arsonist when he and his kids and wife were there. And this so-called White House press secretary wants to lecture America and lecture us about civility. Get lost. Clean up your own house before you have anything to say to us about the language that we use.
Real quick, some of the Jeffrey Epstein survivors are back in the Capitol today. What will a Democratic House majority do to see them get justice, to see the violators be brought to justice?
We want to continue to make sure that we lift up the Epstein survivors in their quest for transparency and accountability, and to end the cover-up that many of them have said they fear is underway.
Congressman Obernolte and Liu introduced their bipartisan AI bill today. How are you currently advising Democrats to talk about AI? And if Democrats take the majority, what will your AI legislative priorities be?
We look forward to making sure that America and our homegrown companies can continue to lead the world in this transformative technology. But at the same period of time, we've got to make sure we protect the American consumer. We have to protect the American homeowner. We have to protect the American ratepayer from some of the downsides of the explosion of what has been taking place across the country, particularly in connection with data centers. We've maintained from the very beginning, as House Democrats, that we want to support innovation, excellence, while at the same time making sure there are guardrails to protect the American people.
Jeffries, the alleged gunman made a reference to the president as a pedophile, a rapist, and some of your own members have made some very similar comments on the House floor. You don't think that perhaps these comments may have cited perhaps this alleged shooter?
I haven't had an opportunity to read the manifesto. The defendant should be prosecuted to the full and complete extent of the law.
After this weekend, are there any changes to member security being discussed? After all, there were a number of members without details assigned to them that were there, and are there specifically for events that are maybe not on federal property that have a lot of members there?
We need to continue to review in a comprehensive way the security measures that are being taken to ensure that members of Congress, whether those are Democrats, Independents, or Republicans, are able to do their jobs safely so they can do their jobs effectively. We've made a lot of progress in this regard since the events of last summer, beginning with what tragically occurred in Minnesota, and have now increased supplemental security funding to $20,000 per month as available from the Sergeant at Arms office. And we'll continue to evaluate, hopefully in a bipartisan way, the steps that we can take to ensure that public servants in this increasingly violent political environment are able to do their jobs. We embrace the fact that everybody should take the temperature down. We're just not going to be lectured by extremists on the other side of the aisle who are looking directly at the camera and then lying to the American people.
Question on defense. Pete Hegseth will be up here this week asking for a $1.5 trillion defense budget. Is that something Democrats can support?
Pete Hegseth should be fired.
On FISA, do you expect any level of Democratic support for the rule tomorrow, and have Democratic committee leaders been brought into the conversation enough to expect any level of Democratic support for the reauthorization itself?
The problem that continues to exist as it relates to FISA, which in the abstract is an important national security tool, is the concern that many Democrats have, including myself, that this surveillance mechanism could be abused by the likes of individuals like Kash Patel and the acting Attorney General. These people have weaponized the criminal justice system, and they simply cannot be trusted to protect the privacy and the civil liberties of the American people. So we'll see what happens on the floor this week. Here's the one thing that we know is not happening on the floor this week. Republicans are doing nothing to lower the high cost of living. Costs in this country continue to go up, gas prices out of control, housing prices out of control, health insurance costs out of control, and Republicans continue to do nothing to make life more affordable for the American people. They would rather talk about vanity projects or try to fan the flames of hatred against the people that they perceive to be their political